All right. So we got past the technical difficulties. Thank you so much. I look forward to this conversation today. I've been speaking at Rotary gigs for Rotary clubs for a little while now, and I'm really enjoying it. I even had one just a moment ago in Elgin, Illinois. So I'm hoping to really make a difference in your life in the next 20 minutes. We're going to discover things about ourselves that are holding us back from being who we really are. So, the first question I have for you today is, where are you not being heard for who you really are? And if we were able to identify those spaces during this conversation of where you are not being who you really are, that would be very, very important, very effective, and very useful. But we're going to do much more than that, because today I'm going to show you how you single handedly can today, now, and for the rest of your life actually make a difference in coming more in touch and presenting the person you already know yourself to be. Now, I've been a doctor for over 30 years, and I'm not going to use some of the phrases they taught me in medical school, like it'll only hurt for a minute, or take two of these and call me in the morning. We're going to try to keep this entirely painless, but we're really going to take a deep dive into something that is really critical in our world today. Do you want to get that corner office at work, or do you want to improve your relationships at home or in any of the communities that you're in? Maybe you want your kids to start listening to you a little bit more, or maybe you want to join a new community or even get a new job. Whatever any of those are, I have your back today, and this conversation is for you. The biggest threat in the world, it's not what you think. It's not a virus. It's not climate change. It's not racism. It's not sex trafficking. It's not even war. Now, to be honest, of course, I don't want to diminish the effects of any of those particular calamities that are threatening our planet at this very moment. But the greatest threat in the world isn't any of those. The greatest threat in the world is that we are losing our true voice. We are either having it taken away from us, or we are agreeing to submit to no longer speaking our true self. Why is that a bigger threat? Because any of the things I just listed and any problem that exists anywhere is going to require us to speak our voice. Without a voice, you will never be heard. Now, without a voice, you can definitely be hearded. Without a true voice, you will never be known. But with a true voice, it is the pathway to healing, love, and peace. In fact, I say that true voice is the fundamental prerequisite for ending all wars, inside or out. Henry David Thoreau said this best: the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to their graves with their songs still in them. If we all just want to be heard, why is it so difficult these days to speak our voice? Anybody have anything about that?
Fear. We're fearful.
Exactly.
Think about us.
Exactly. Fear is exactly the number one answer. I don't know that it's correct, but yeah, you land with the number one answer that people give. And sometimes nobody speaks. I asked that question in front of 40 people one time, and nobody raised their hand, which really points to the fear that we all have about speaking our true voice. Now, if we're afraid to speak our true voice and then choosing not to speak it, well, we're not going to get very far in being known for what it is and who we are. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into that. How do you get your true voice out in the room and then be applauded for it? That's the function of this conversation. And I say, when you do get your true voice out, applause will be waiting for you. If you could take a bite, if you could get a new lease on life in this area, where you then were now incrementally speaking even more genuine truths to the people around you who matter to you. That would make this conversation exquisitely worthwhile, and that's my intention. Hello, my name is Dr. Fred, and I'm commonly known as the undoctor. Why is that? Well, I undiagnose, unmedicate, and then undoctrinate the people that I'm with. Let me tell you how I got here. I was born to a family that was in disarray and a fair amount of chaos. At least that's what they tell me. Little Freddie was to come to bring peace and communication and love to this family. I had two brothers, ages 10 and 14 years older than me, and they're still 10 and 14 years older than me. And them and my parents were in some trouble. And little Freddie was to bring a bundle of joy to that family. And I did a pretty good job for a couple years, I'm sure, until my brothers got annoyed or agitated with me. And that's a whole different discussion. And they taught me how to be precocious. They taught me how to read. They taught me how to write. They taught me how to do simple math. And by the time I went into kindergarten, I was actually doing simple multiplication and reading books, unlike my peers in kindergarten who were throwing blocks at each other and picking their nose and waiting for the afternoon nap. Now, the truth is, I was throwing blocks, picking my nose, and waiting for nap too, but I wanted to read Henry Huggins and do flashcards. I knew that I loved communication. I knew that communication was what I wanted to master. I loved watching my brothers and parents speak, and then actually things would get done. And I thought, that's what I want to do with my life. So when entered kindergarten, that's what I was hoping for, but it didn't happen there. So I thought, oh, the big kids, they're the ones, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. And when I got there, it was kind of worse than kindergarten. And then as I get gone through and going through school, it was like, when am I going to learn how to communicate? Maybe junior high, but that was disappointing again. And even in high school, I saw that communication wasn't the driving force. Open discourse was not what was being called for inside of the conventional educational system. So because I loved their helmets and because everyone told me it was the best school in Michigan, I went to the University of Michigan. At the University of Michigan, I decided that that's where I would learn how to communicate. But in the engineering school at the University of Michigan, open discourse is the last thing that was called for. I was just watching professors do and say things I had never seen before, writing down notes. And then if I could regurgitate exactly what they said or did in a future test, they would call me a good student and then move me to the next grade. I saw the absurdity in this if I was truly going to be a communicator. So I dropped out of school. I got on a Greyhound bus and went to Berkeley, California, so that I could actually find myself. I spent about 2 months in Berkeley at the youth hostel and found myself to some degree, but I also found that I was broke and I needed to have a job. So I called my family and they said, come on back, get your degree, and then go find yourself. So I sauntered back to Ann Arbor and got into school one more time, this time in a world where they told me the future was in computers. Well, there was only one computer in all of the state of Michigan. It was a 2-acre facility on the University of Michigan campus. So I enrolled and began to do computers. For any of you that remember those days, they were punch cards that we had to fill out, stacks and stacks and stacks of punch cards. And then I would turn them into the computer and then wait for a couple hours to see that my program hadn't run. And then I'd fix a card and turn it back in. And that looked like a life that wasn't going to work for me either. So I dropped out again. And I went to home. I told my mom that I am never going back to college again. I want to learn how to communicate, and that isn't where it's being taught. And she said, that's okay, but we got to get you a job. So she got me an application at a state mental health facility for adolescent boys called Fairlawn Center in Pontiac, Michigan. I took that job thinking that I'd stay long enough for orientation and to buy myself a car so I could drive around the country and figure out what my world was about. But by the fourth week, I decided to go up to the floors and met the children, I should say, the humans who I was now going to be working with. And for the first time ever, I was getting paid to communicate effectively. I had a job where all I had to do was connect with another person and healing would take place. It was amazing because healing would take place in all directions. I had a great time at that job. I really enjoyed it after I got over my initial fears. And there was only one thing I hated about it, which was how psychiatry was dealing with those kids. You see, we would call the psychiatrist when Timmy was up too late or Jimmy and Johnny had gotten in a fight, and he would come down and interview Jimmy for about 3 seconds and then interview me for about 7 seconds and then walk into the nursing station with his weapon, which looked a little bit like this. And he would write something into the chart. We would then have to go haul Timmy into the quiet room and hold him down despite him screaming, spitting, kicking, and swearing at us. And then pull his shorts down a little bit so that we could see his hip and then jam him full of injectable sedative medication and put him out of his misery for the next 12 to 24 hours. If Jimmy didn't say another word for 12 or 24 hours, we could chart that that was a successful intervention. By the way, this is still going on in the hospitals all over the country today. This is not very changed. And I just saw this as barbaric and heinous, and I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So I finally made a decision, since my brother, 14 years older than me, is already a psychiatrist, that I was going to go to psychiatry and learn how to bring communication back to this field. And that's what I did over the next 13 years as I finished off my degree and then went to Northwestern and then got my residency and my child and adolescent fellowship, working as a child care worker the entire time. I'm really just a glorified child care worker, in fact. And off I went into being a doctor. But in that, while I was in school, there was the introduction of Prozac. Prozac was introduced in 1987 and altered the whole landscape of what mental health and psychiatry was about. See, Prozac made it that there was a biological psychiatry now instead of communication, and that if you any discomfort whatsoever, that was a result of a chemical imbalance that we could fix with some sort of drugs. Well, whether or not I agreed with it, I was certainly being called on to drive those medicines forward as a psychiatrist, right? What's the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist? Oh, yeah, you're the ones who prescribe medicine. So over the next 30 years, I wrote for over 100,000 prescriptions for medicine, and I went into the field so I wouldn't have to do that. I was living duplicitously. I was living a pretentious life. I was doing things that were falling against who I really knew myself to be as a communicator. But I was also injecting communication. I was working it until about 2006 when I had had enough. In 2006, with a full practice behind me, I decided to do something that in some ways was seen as radical. I call this my true voice moment. I decided that I would take my low risk patients off of medicine. I know, shocking. You did what? It's so funny that we're more afraid to take people off of medicine than we are to start them on medicine. So I took some off of medicine and then I removed their diagnosis and people got reliably better. Over and over again, people got better without their medicine and without their diagnosis. And I started to expand that a little more, realizing what people really want more than anything was to be connected with. And I began, it's not for everyone, by the way. I'm not saying that everyone should just get off their medicine. That's not it. It's not so simple. But when I picked my patients carefully, I was able to make some very real strides that I now call my true voice moment. I was now here to be a healer. And in the last 15, 16 years, that's exactly what I've been doing. Slowly, I have moved away from conventional medicine and really brought people to their own true self, bringing their own true voice. I had now become a healer when before I had been a doctor. So I ask you, where are you still being a doctor instead of the healer that you know you are? Where are you doing what you should rather than what you know is right, what you know is consistent with yourself? All right. Well, when you think about that, what I want you to get is that if you're giving yourself a hard time, it's time to be accepting. It's time to forgive yourself, and it's time to have compassion for yourself. You see, we learned early on in our life that not being ourselves actually pays dividends. Like if I scream a little bit louder, I get a bigger lollipop. Or if I blame my sister for my troubles, she'll get in trouble instead of me. And then the crack in the cement got larger and we never went back to repair it. So we began to live a little bit more and more duplicitously as ourselves. Each of you knows to some degree what I'm saying. Sometimes we are forced not to be who we are. And in fact, sometimes we choose to be someone entirely different than who we are. We have become a society that is living in this quiet desperation. We have become a society with our songs still unsung. That's bad news, but here's the good news. There's something we can do about it, and we can do it today. I'm going to give you a few principles. Number one, pretending to be someone that you're not in order to protect the person that you are is completely ineffective and totally ludicrous. You see, you're going to be hated and disagreed with and canceled and censored, and you're going to be misunderstood and have your heart broken, whether or not you pretend to be somebody or you be yourself. If that's the case, if there's no protection, I invite you to consider bringing yourself anyways and seeing how it goes. Bringing your genuine self forward. Number two, you don't have a lot to say over how things go in this world, but you do have a lot to say over what you say, who you are, and what you do. You are not a prisoner to the habits that brought you to this very moment. I invite you to see that in the next second, you could actually say and do something entirely different than you've ever said before, no matter how your life has gone up until now. That is a really important piece of this whole process. Number three, authenticity is totally contagious, meaning when you're authentic, you open the space for the people around you to be authentic, whether or not they're opposed or disagree with what it is that is your content. Have you ever noticed that when someone disagrees with you, even diametrically, but they're speaking from their heart, they become somebody that you can listen to and even respect? You see, authenticity is more valued than even agreement. We look for heartfelt, genuine authenticity. And if so, we can respect the other person and listen. You can get better at closing this gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. And the key is in listening. Self expression comes in many forms, not just vocality. There's the creative arts, art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, and gardening are also ways to communicate, also ways to bring that self expressed self forward. Now, to be sure, blurting out answers, screaming from the mountaintops, calling your sister in law to tell her you've hated her for 25 years is not what I'm talking about with true voice. True voice is about taking into consideration what's really wanted in the room, what's really wanted with the other person, how to move that needle forward, and then creatively moving into that intended result. Applause is waiting for you should you do that, whether it's out loud or simply in the hearts and minds of the people that you are with. And that applause will not only be in the boardroom or the Rotary room, it'll be in your community. It may even be in your home or your living room, or perhaps even your bedroom. That's right. Your relationship with your primary spouse or significant other is being affected in the areas where you are remaining ingenuine or holding a withholding. The True Voice community is a group of like minded individuals who are interested in bringing their true voice incessantly and in authentically listening to others for what is wanted and needed in order to foster healing, peace, and love. This work can't be done alone. I invite you to have conversations with the people in your life. The thing that's going on in your head now about whether or not you're going to do this or it's too hard or I don't think so or all that, that's not a conversation. That's actually called a monologue. A conversation is having a conversation with another person. I invite you to try today just bringing a slight increment more genuine or authentic messages in your conversations, even right here in the Rotary Room. I have a book that I recently wrote. I know you'll be shocked with the title. It's called Find Your True Voice. Find Your True Voice. I am going to send you a copy of it if you'd like to take a deeper dive into this methodology. So you can find that book at findyourtruevoicebook.com, which is now in the chat. I will send you a copy, take a deeper look, and if you'd like to talk further, I'm available on the other side of you reading that book. So I invite you to step into your true voice. I invite you to listen from your heart. Because when you connect with others, you heal the world. And not only will you feel the peace, I invite you to see that true voice is what's required to end all wars internally or externally. Voltaire said it best. I may disagree with what it is that you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. An advocate for true voice, to say the very least. Finally, I want to share with you something I'm doing, a project that's right now called We the People Summit. The We the People Summit is I have assembled some of the most amazing world-class inspirational influencers to speak to all of us about how we too are influencers just like we are, even without 1 million followers or $1 million. We can make a difference with the people in our life, which then changes the world. This is a free conference. Our next one is on May 14th. Our following one will be on May 28th. And we're bringing forth these influencers to teach us how to become the influencers that we already are. We are accepting donations at this conference on our way to raising $1 million for those people devastated in Ukraine. People who have been disrupted and dismissed because their true voice is being shut down. So, welcome to your new life. Welcome to a new love. Welcome to peace within and without. Welcome to your humanity. Welcome to your true voice. I can assure you that applause is waiting for you on the other side of this, if only you listen and then speak your true self. Thank you, and I'm open for any questions or comments at this time.
That's anybody. So if you want to get a book, copy of your book, they can go to findyourtruevoice.com.
Com.
Thank you. All right. I'm a little slow on the uptake, so I can't hear any better than I can communicate.
If-
And then the other line.
We the People Summit online. And then if you want to speak to me directly, you can email me at Dr. Eager and interested in getting this message out. I'm finally doing that which I came to the earth to do, which is like bringing forth communication as a primary form of altering the world. And so in this opportunity, I like to speak to groups of all sizes. If you know a group in your world that is ready to hear my message, I would be glad to speak with them. Just talk to Kimberly and she can arrange that for us.
And everybody, Kimberly has, just a minute, Bill. Kimberly has video this presentation, so we'll have that available to people in the club. Okay, Bill?
Goes on mute.
Right, right. Well, Dr. Fred, let me ask you this. Is how critical is the content of what you say with what you believe is your true voice versus just the fact of communicating rather than sitting silently?
Interesting.
And I say that because some years ago, a friend of mine encouraged me to, and I might have the organization wrong, encouraged me, he said, come try a class in at Scientology, I think it was. And I did. And if that was the right class, maybe it wasn't, or maybe it was EST. But one of the themes that I came away with, was that almost any communication, the theory, almost any communication can make a situation better. Now, obviously, if you're screaming and yelling at each other, that doesn't count. But the idea that communicating itself is an, if you will, an exercise, an activity that very frequently can move things forward almost irrespective of the content.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Extremely well said. The content is generally overrated in this world of communication. We take so much, we take these days, especially in the divisiveness that's going on in the world, we really think that agreeing or disagreeing with someone is at the heart of the matter. But the truth is, if someone is speaking authentically, that is so contagious. And that's where these processes, that's where taking on the 5 or 6 or 20 things that are the threat to humanity, whether it's externally in the whole world or even in the, your primary relationships, it is in communication that we're going to make any strides. One thing for sure, like I said, is that if we don't communicate, um, we will make no stride. So the idea of really all that's left to do is communicate, even in the face of all the trickiness of, the fears and the concerns about communicating. It couldn't be a more important time to step forth and connect with the people in your life.
Do you feel it's also important? Communication is good, but listening is good.
More than listening. Yeah. Yeah.
People
Listen.
don't listen.
No, you are absolutely right. And I call that the key ingredient of the whole thing. Really listening is more important than even speaking. The truth is about listening is you cannot get in trouble while you're listening. You cannot say something. You cannot like put your foot in your mouth if you're just genuinely listening. It's a very safe activity, actually, to listen to people, even if they're saying something entirely different than what you think about a particular issue. So listening is what calls forth that which is intended to move that conversation forward, whether it's with that other person or the context of the circumstances that that you see yourself in.
Mhm.
Yes, Mike.
Are you still in practice?
I'm not in practice as a conventional psychiatrist. I do a little bit. I do some forensic work. I have been all over this country and frankly, all over the world in every area. My CV is pretty impressive. But these days, what I do is more transformational restorative coaching, taking people from being disempowered to empowered on the way to getting their true voice. So sometimes there's people who are like, ready to go into the psychiatric field, or they have a family member who's in that they don't want in anymore, being mistreated or misaligned. And I certainly can help in that situation. So I do more what I call coaching than actually psychiatric work. Um, I no longer prescribe medicines, and frankly, I no longer pay much attention to diagnoses. If I was to diagnose you, Michael, I would say that your diagnosis is something like, I don't know you very well, but if I was to diagnose you, I would say your diagnosis is Mike Feely. That's what I would say.
Yes. I was,
That's
and I
good.
almost thought you were going to say something about the burrito that was hit.
Oh my gosh.
Are you local?
Is that LOCO? Am I loco or LOCAL?
AL. Do you live in Portland?
No, I don't. I don't live very far away. I live about 9 hours south in Grass Valley, California, in the edge of
Yeah.
the Sierra Madre. Yeah.
We have a friend that lives in Grass Valley.
Oh, cool.
Right? Yep. Just a little
Mike,
fire danger there.
Mike, it sounds like maybe we have a conversation. Let me give you, I'll give you actually my phone number as well. It's 916.
Let me get something to write it down.
Sure. Thank you. It's 916.
Hang on. Just
It's going to be on the tape, isn't it, Dr.
Yeah,
Fred?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So here, and I'll just put it in here as well. And any of you, look, the time is now for this message. This isn't just another widget. I'm not selling you a product that, is going to make your life easier. I'm selling you a product that's going to save your world. And, it's not even a sale. It's just an
Yeah.
encouragement. Like, step up. Like, this is what we have here. And if we don't speak, the future's grim. David, I see your hand is up.
I think for communication to work, all parties must be acting in good faith.
Mhm.
Vladimir Zelensky, I think, is communicating in an authentic way, but Mr. Putin is not acting in good faith.
Mhm.
He is advancing various explanations for his actions that are completely bogus, and he's tone deaf to whatever Zelensky might be saying. So there's not communication there. Instead, there's, a horrible destruction of a country.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Look, you don't have much to say about what's going on in the world, but you have a lot to say about who you are, what you do, and what you say. So in the end, you don't have a whole lot to say about what Mr. Putin or other folks who aren't communicating effectively. Here's what I know. What I know is that communication and authenticity, sort of like what I think William was saying, is a contagious event. when you open up the space for open communication, I have personally experienced, and I'm sure you have well, um, miracles, like people who otherwise couldn't communicate in the face of really true listening, finally say that which is really important to them. And that's all they really wanted in the first place. In the mental health world, hundreds and hundreds of times I have run into that experience. So all you have left is to be authentic with yourself and your communication. I can't promise it's going to end up in roses, but I can promise that if you don't do that, it won't end up in roses. And that's really all that's here. It's troubling times. It's difficult to be a human these days, and it's beautiful at the same time.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question, Dave? I hope so.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? I invite you to get the book. It's free.
It is. It's totally free. I'll even pick up the shipping. And I love Portland, by the way. I have a lot of friends in Portland, and I used to go to Eugene a lot. And so it's not hard for me to head north. But anyways, we're kind of neighbors, and I do love Portland.
Good. Well, thank you. All right.
I worked for the Division of Forestry in California back in the 60s in Grass Valley,
Nice.
Nevada City. So I know
Yeah.
where-
Yeah, Nevada City rocks. I actually feel like I'm in a really beautiful part of the world for sure.
It is. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we thank you, Dr. Fred. Thank you, Kimberly.
I don't know if I said it. Let me just say it again. I like speaking to groups, and these days it's really important for me to get this message out. It's what I do with my time. So if you can think, if there's a group in your world that's ready to hear this message, both Kimberly and I are ready for that. I also have an evaluation form that I'd like you to take a peek at. We listen and read those things carefully and adjust our talks as a result of that. One way or another. If it moved you positively, please let us know. If you have some suggestions, please let us know. And it is, I should also tell you that I'm about to join Rotary Club Nevada City. So that's super awesome too, because service above self.
Have Kimberly put that in an email, the survey, and then
Yeah.
I will put you on the speakers bureau for Rotary clubs here. And
Okay.
then we just contact Kimberly.
Awesome. That
All
sounds
right.
great.
Good. One true Rotarian to the other.
Absolutely.
We'll get the word out. Okay. Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
everyone. And
thank you.
yep. My phone number, I think did I give it out already? I gave you the, here
have
it is,
it.
You have it. Okay, good. All right, good.
Yep.
All right.
Gotta get that. All right. Well, have a good day. Hope it's sunny
Thank you.
there.
All right. Yep. Beautiful day today. Thank you there
right.
too. All right. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.